Well, thank you so much, Jean and Dee. That was a great presentation. I loved all the nuts and bolts that you provided for us today. We do have a couple of questions that came in. One was, did your IRB raise any concerns about recruiting via Facebook ads? And the person that asked the question said, I can't think of anything other than unwanted ads on Facebook can be annoying.
I don't know the answer to that. Do you know the answer, Dee?
I don't, but I would assume that they wouldn't have been able to do it without permission. And of course, the ad itself, like the flyer that was created, went through the IRB, as all study recruitment materials should. And I think because they tried to target people so much with the ad that they tried not to have like it get to the wrong group. So hopefully not many people who wouldn't have been in the target community of focus would have gotten it in their feed.
Okay, let's see if, does anyone else have a question that we can ask our presenters before we move on to our discussion? We did have a comment regarding the comment that someone else had made saying that many researchers might be discouraged by their organizations or by the federal government from being on social media. And at Robin Brandt responded, prior to applying for funds, one could speak to your funding agency about the use of social media. You could also write explicitly about your expectations for the use of social media as part of your dissemination campaign and documenting why it's important. Jean or Dee, do you have any further comment to expand on that?
So we're on our third cycle of receiving our Learning and Working RRTC, I'll never get the Research and Training Center, Research and Rehabilitation Training Center grant. And in year two, we realized, funding cycle 2, when we were writing the application, we really dedicated a lot of time to creating a social media plan, parsing out what platforms we were going to use. And we did end up having some that didn't work out. We tried Tumblr because our community of focus for this center was young adults with serious mental health conditions as one of the main communities of focus. So we thought Tumblr would be a great place. No. And I think we were a little too early for LinkedIn when we were trying that out. So that may be something to re-examine. But we spent a lot of time writing out, I think it took up over a page of our grant, believe it or not, talking about our whole strategy with social media and why it's important. And in our next application that we just got funded last year, we said that we would continue with what we've done before, and we're going to expand to a few things like Instagram. And because we were able to demonstrate that we had growth, we keep metrics of everything.
Great. Well, that was really helpful. Well, thank you so much. I guess we can go ahead and ask our reactors to go ahead to come on back and turn their cameras on, and we'll have a little bit more of a discussion from our 3 reactors about your presentation or about anything that was actually presented today, since we're at the end of the day and we're wrapping up. So reminder, our presenters are Paul Baker, Senior Director, Research and Strategic Innovation at Georgia Tech Center for Advanced Communications, and Interim Chief Operations Officer, Center for the Development and Application of IoT Technologies. He's also a Principal Research Scientist with the School of Public Policy and Operations Manager of the NIDLR-funded Wireless RERC. Excuse me. Marta Garcia is Bilingual Information and Media Specialist at National Rehabilitation Information Center, NARIC, and has expertise in the development of digital content in English and Spanish, social media analytics, and account management. Marta oversees NARIC's Spanish language social media accounts and creates content that is seen in the Spanish-speaking disability community around the globe. And Hilda Smith is a queer, trans, and disabled person who is a vanguard of new and radical social justice work, focusing on disability, addiction, and knowledge mobilization. With a doctorate in critical disability studies from York University, they have become an expert in knowledge mobilization, clear language, event promotion, and relationship building. So let's see what we can come up with, some commentary and some reaction and discussion. Marta, how does NARIC engage people with disabilities with their social media accounts? Are there different strategies for the Spanish accounts than the English accounts?
Yeah, there are some differences. Like I said before, the English is a little bit more formal, whereas the Spanish is not quite so formal. And I know one of the things that I do with the Spanish social media is, like, for example, if researchers are recruiting, I'll post a question. Now, are you a person with autism? And want to participate in research? Hey, check out what our friends at whatever whatever Nightlife project is doing that is looking for those participants. So it's like I said, I try to make it formal and post that question like, hey, are you? And check out what these guys are doing, kind of situation. And I know with English, they also promote we promote, sorry, it's the end of the day. I must need more coffee. They also promote we promote, research participation. So, but like I said, they'll do it a little bit more. The English is done in a little bit more formally than the Spanish.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We do have several questions that have come in from the audience. So let's go take a look at some of those. Have you had any unsuccessful recruitment of participants on Facebook and Twitter? This question, I guess, would be for Dee and Jean, but then also for our reactors. And then what did you change or learn? The person asking the question said, I haven't had any success and I don't know why.
To be honest, Jean and I didn't have a lot to do with the actual implementation of the Facebook ad, so we don't know all of the challenges that the SPEED study team faced. But I know when they were looking for a very specific type of person to recruit into the study, they did have challenges. It's like Facebook doesn't have the answer for everything and doesn't collect data quite on everything yet, thankfully, I think. So, they were looking for young adults who had been in foster care to recruit into the study. And that's not something, you can Facebook ad really for without putting it in the message itself. So that was a challenge. And so they spent a lot of time not using the Facebook ad for that and going other routes with contacting organizations and agencies that they've worked with previously to see if they could help. So it's not perfect. It can't get you every person.
Sure. Yeah. Another question that came in is wondering whether you evaluate your engagement and whether there are any benchmarks to know whether or not you're being successful.
So one of the things that we try and do with our social media is that we include a link to something that's posted on our website, whether it's a tip sheet or a recording of a webinar or a presentation that we've done. So we can follow, I think there's two different ways that we measure the effectiveness of social media. Neither of them perfect, but it's really almost
something
the best we can do. The first one is really just looking at whether our fan base is growing and whether our interaction, the comments and shares are growing. And the second is how many of the people that are landing on our Facebook posts or Twitter posts are then coming over to a page on our website. So we use Google Analytics to measure the success of how many hits we're getting on our individual website pages or the pages that store our tip sheets. And if we can see a direct correlation, if I'm posting a tip sheet about should I tell my boss about my disability and how do I do that, and we see an increase in the number of visitors and downloads of that tip sheet on our website, then that is one of the ways that we measure. But can I say, do we plan for any specific goals on a quarterly basis? It's really hard to do with social media because I don't think it necessarily matters. It would be difficult for me to say, I'm going to set up a goal of increasing our fan base by 25% this quarter, because oftentimes that really doesn't mean anything. So for us, I think for us, what's meaning is if people end up landing on the site and we see that they're using the products that we are delivering there.
Sure. No,
I hope that answers the question.
that totally makes sense. Marta, did you have something you want to follow up with? If not, I'll ask Hilda or Paul if they have a comment.
I did. One of the things that I use to check the benchmarks or is at least with Twitter, you can use analytics. And so that's sort of how I gauge where if a post has been successful or a campaign has been successful, is checking in the analytics to see how well a particular post did, or if we've received more followers, or even just earlier today during our break, I was checking I checked the stats, the analytics for the week, and the conference broke our Twitter. So yay, thank you. So like, for example, tweeting about the conference has increased our analytics.
Oh, that's great.
So just to give you thank you. Just to give you guys an example of a real-time example of how analytics and checking the benchmarks can be very useful. So that's all I had to share.
Okay, got another question. Wondering how to be able to achieve a little bit of what you describe in listening when you're just a small research lab with limited resources. What you described seems really resource consuming. Do you have any tips?
I do, and I agree with what you were saying. So it really helps to personally just enjoy the topic at hand, because it becomes honestly part of my personal activity that I do. But I think because it's really just one person, me, that's doing this, and it's very part-time, but we have several different research projects going on at any given time. I usually try and really pay attention to just one or two. So when I talked about Twitter lists, at the beginning of the pandemic, when there was that huge question of are schools going to reopen, are colleges going to go back in person or virtually, what's going to happen to the mental health of college students, I really just focused my primary attention on that topic. And that's where I tried to listen in on the transition age youth closed Facebook pages. And that's where I tried to listen in on the kind of the experts in the field in terms of secondary education on Twitter. And so I totally get what you're saying, and it can be really intensive. So I do sometimes just put on blinders to a lot of the topics other than the one topic at hand. But the second thing I want to say is a product like Hootsuite that allows you to again, kind of create feeds just focused on particular topics makes it much easier to just leave behind all of the unessential and inessential stuff that you see on social media and really hone in just on a specific topic or two.
Great.
Yeah, and we are trying to train our investigators to send Jean information that they want shared about their study, or work that they've been doing, so that it can go out, through one person. So we're trying to get them used to that. Some are better than others. So it is a lot of work, though, definitely.
Okay, I see that Paul Baker had posted in the chat box. Paul, would you like to expound a little on your comment? Useful to keep in mind the demographics of the specific platforms.
Yeah, for instance, one of the things that I hear is, I have friends that go across a wide range, including some very young people. And I'm 65, so I'm like ancient. I think some of my young friends think social media for me means, cutting words out of the newspaper and putting them on the on our refrigerator. But what I hear is like, Facebook is for like really grandparents. So remember the demographics. And you earlier, Heather was talking about the message has to, the media and the message has to be tuned. I saw a meme recently in which people were asking what's the hand signal to say call someone? And they asked boomers who said this. They asked submillennials and they went, what's that? Know your platform, know your message makes a huge difference. In respect to the, I did want to comment about how you keep track of this stuff. If you aren't careful, social media can be a rabbit hole that goes down and sucks every spare minute of your time. My suggestion on how to make it manageable is 3 kinds of heuristics. One, if it is a significant part, like I said, I manage 8 different platform accounts. I do an hour, and I do before I start my day. I queue messages up using Hootsuite, because one of the mistakes people do is go, oh, let's do Twitter. Let's dump 5 messages at the same time. Well, your impression is there and it's gone. Spread it out during the day. Use like Buffer or one of the timing devices that allows you to feed it out during the day. It's also okay to repeat messages, because the same people, when I first started this, one of my colleagues at Edinburgh University, I said, I can't keep up with Twitter. And he goes, that's because you're trying to drink the river. You dip your hand in the river, dip your hand in the river, and you're not trying to capture the universe. It's representative. It doesn't have to be everything. Don't look at it that way. So set aside an hour or a certain amount of time in the morning and a certain amount of time in the afternoon, and then don't mess with it in between, or you won't get research done.
Right.
Be disciplined. Number 2, in terms of listening, it's how you operationalize listening. By listening, do you mean, are you collecting facts about stuff? In other words, you could use hashtags to give you a sense of what people are talking about. This is listening. By listening, do you mean a conversation like direct messaging, a different kind? My suggestion is that what you should, if you really are doing an actual engaged conversation, when you've made a connection, take it offline so that you can do it via email and manage it, and you have a record that's more private. That way you don't get stuck in having conversations. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but most of us are not doing this full time. It's ancillary. And the third thing is proving it works. My suggestion is, okay, go back to your old way of recruiting and see how much better it is. It doesn't have to be this or this. It's this and this. Use the tools at your disposal. Okay, gone on too far. Thank you.
Paul, those were some great comments. Hilda, I know you're out there. I wanted to follow up with you about the idea of using social media as a listening tool. Could you give us some comments on how you might advise research institutions to recruit stakeholders and authentically listen to them via social media?
So I will answer that. I just wanted to build on something Paul said first.
Sure, go ahead.
So Paul was saying, like, know the demographics of the platform. It's also really important to know what the platform is used for. If you are going onto TikTok because you want to connect with a younger audience, you have to ask yourself, what is it used for? Is it used for just having a 30-minute like laugh and like that's it? Are they actually going to engage with something and information in that platform? It's I like Dee mentioned, I have tried using Tumblr numerous times because like that is where like some of my audience is. But research and organizational information is not suited for that platform. It's not what it's for. So demographics, but then also the use of the platform, what happens on it, what kind of information is being shared is really important in figuring out if it's even worth your time to go to that platform at all. So, yes. But now to get to listening. I think a really important thing, and I love the idea of listening. I'm really big into when it's possible to just kind of like ghost the communities that you want to engage with before you start reaching out. And ghosting, if in case people don't know, that just means you're just kind of sitting and watching the tweets, you're seeing the conversations coming up, you're not actually engaging. And what that is it lets you get to know kind of the social norms within that community about how they use social media, what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, what kind of language is used. And that can really help then when you reach out or when you're kind of deciding on what that is going to look like for those communities to really be able to like build that connection. So it's not just coming in as a researcher, but you coming in as like an ally or a community member to break down some of those barriers.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Let's see. Does anyone else in the audience have a new question for us? And in the meantime, while we're waiting to see if we have another question, I wanted to ask Dee and Jean, do you have any wrap-up comments or anything further that you would like to say as we get close to the end of our day here?
Well, I realized that we didn't put our social media handles in our presentation, so I will add that to the chat box.
Please do.
For people to visit us.
And I realized I forgot one of the other really important ways that persons with lived experience take part in our work. They really help to look at our work after research is completed and help us develop our products, which helps make them so much more useful, because you can look at your research and data and be like, writing a journal article, sure, but translating it into something that a young adult could use, you may not be in that sphere, or, you know, Jean and I are no longer young adults. I know. So, you know, getting that voice, and I'm not a parent of a young adult, so having different people and getting the feedback and information and help in developing products or creating presentations and delivering presentations is a really big, important part of how our stakeholders take part.
Well, thank you very much, Dee and Jean. It was a really interesting presentation. Now I'd like to ask our reactors if you'd have some closing comments, thinking back on the whole day, not just this presentation, but if there's anything else you'd like to add. And let's go ahead and start with Marta this time.
Hi. I will say the whole entire day has been a learning experience. Yes, I do the social media thing for NARIC every day, but I've learned some things throughout the day, which is great. So thank you.
That's great.
And one of the things that I did want to say, going back to the lists, I do have one list for NIDL grantees. That's just everybody, and then one that for those who have Spanish language materials. So that way I can keep track. But I did want to say, do not hesitate to reach out to me if you want to share materials to the Spanish language crowd. And I'll be more than happy to help you out and tweet and Facebook things to help you guys out.
Great, thank you. And Hilda, do you have anything you'd like to wrap up with? Your last comments were very on point. Thank you.
I also just want to say that this has been a great experience. Having this conference really center around social media has been kind of fascinating to kind of see all these different aspects and to kind of bring all the different pieces together. Yeah, and I guess the last thing I would leave people with is we kind of have this expectation that social media is kind of like a wild place where there's no kind of understanding about how you engage or interact. But people develop social norms in social media just like they do in physical spaces. You just have to kind of find a way to kind of identify and find those things. And then once you do, it can really help your engagement on those spaces.
Great, thank you very much. That's a very interesting perspective that probably a lot of us hadn't really thought about. So thank you for that. And Paul, I'm going to give you the chance to be the wrap up. We do have a little bit of time left, so don't worry about your time.
Are you trying to suggest that I go on too long?
You're the one that stops yourself each time saying you've gone on too long, where you really haven't, but thank you.
I was Joe Bidening it.
Okay, there you go.
A couple things. One, it occurred to me while we were thinking, one thing that would be really interesting is these are kind of like panels, but it would be quite easy to take and like maybe add a workshop component in which people actually practice doing some of this stuff online in real time. I mean, it would take a little planning, and you probably wouldn't want to run 150 people tweeting at the same time, but I think to actually do a workshop where you experiment and train it would be kind of an interesting thing. Plus, there'd probably be a paper out of it. I'm just suggesting. Always an important consideration. The other thing is an observation. I have always been fairly fearless. I'm a male. I'm of a certain age, and I know that there are gendered and I'm Latino, I'm gay, so I do have some kind of high risk areas, but I have always been fairly fearless on social media. And I had an experience which all of a sudden brought home, it is not quite as benevolent as I thought it was. I do work in voting and voting machines and accessibility of voting machines. Supporting voting machines in Georgia is a very partisan issue. Liberals tend to hate it. Republicans love it. I love voting machines because of the ability it gives to enfranchise people with disabilities. I work with Canadians, and one of the complaints I heard in Canada is they don't have voting machines, and blind voters have a hard time voting. They really wish it was there. So a very well-known person who writes on voting machines, and I call them a neo-Luddite, a paper pusher. They want everything on paper, no machines. So she posted something, and my response was, why do you hate voters with disabilities? Holy crap. 130,000 impressions, more than I have ever gotten, including threats. This guy is a hack who works at Georgia Tech. His address is, first time in my life I was ever frightened. And because I realize now I'm a public figure, and in that I'm identifiable. I can be tracked down. I was never scared before. And ever since then, I have now started running filters on stuff I post. I don't post anything that I think is going to set someone off, but I'm not a pundit, right? I'm a researcher. I can do things very neutral. This was the one time I slipped and made a snarky remark. So my caution is, be careful about snark.
Well, I think that's a very wise comment and probably a good way to end our session today. So a huge thank you to all of our presenters today and to our 3 reactors for a fantastic second day of the 2020 Online Knowledge Translation Conference.